Well, many Americans are concerned about where our country is headed under the new administration. As the Democrat Party seems to have shifted further and further to the left, moderate Democrats seem harder and harder to find. And it begs the question, is unity really possible in our deeply divided country? And where are we going the next few years? Here to answer those questions and a few more is a Democrat for whom I have the highest respect due to her straightforward and civil nature, former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Congresswoman, welcome back. I want to begin by talking about an area of interest I know you care deeply about. You served in the National Guard, later in Iraq in combat, one of the few members of Congress to have ever done that. National Guard this week were put out on a parking lot for a while to rest, and it's been controversial, as it should be. It seemed like a real denigration to those troops. What was your reaction when you saw those men and women out there from the National Guard essentially shoved out of the Capitol inside and forced to take their breaks out in a parking lot?
It made me so sick, and it made me so angry. As I started seeing these pictures popping up, you know, we had over 25,000 National Guard soldiers who on very, very short notice dropped everything, went to Washington, D.C., and then to be told a couple days later, thanks, guys, we got our photo ops. We don't need you anymore. And then to see them pushed into one of the parking lots that I probably parked in many times when I was there working and serving in Washington, and knowing how cold and dark and dank and unhealthy a situation that was for anybody to be for hours and hours. It's just yet another of many offensive slaps in the face to the men and women who are willing to lay their lives down for our country and for all of us.
I certainly hope it never happens again. Something else I hope it never happens again is the deep division of this country, and it has been intense. President Biden said the right things at the inaugural address, for which I appreciated, saying that he wanted to fight as hard for the people who didn't vote for him as the people who did. But how is that possible if Congress pursues impeachment of a president who is no longer there? They can't remove him. He's already been removed. What would your advice be to Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and other Democrats with whom you have served about the impeachment?
Well, I actually want to focus on President Biden because you're right. He gave a very powerful speech on Inauguration Day. As you mentioned, he talked about the need for us to come together as a country, the need for us to not demonize political opponents, to be able to invite and to welcome everyone, whether they agree or disagree. This is the kind of leadership that our country needs now, and I really hope President Biden does what he has promised to do. My concern is that we are seeing the exact opposite starting to happen, where this demonization of, frankly, anybody who voted for Trump, maybe anybody who attended one of his rallies, people who voted for his political opponent, basically being demonized. And to take it a step further, now you have people like former CIA Director John Brennan, others within Washington who are calling for essentially a targeting of this broad swath of Americans under the guise of fighting white supremacy. So I think this is a really important thing for us to address because President Biden needs to lead. And he said in his speech as well, he wants to defeat white supremacy. What is he really talking about here? He needs to clarify and be very specific because the ideology of white supremacy that you and I know of is the one held by the KKK and Nazis that I think just about every American would denounce and reject as something that is directly counter to our values as Americans. But if you've got people like John Brennan and other very influential people in Washington essentially calling for half of the country to be targeted, there's no way that we get past the divisiveness and the pain and the wounds that we're feeling right now as a country. And he needs to denounce them and the words that they are saying that are further tearing us apart.
I hope he and other people in Washington will listen to you. Regards to social media, many of the big tech companies have essentially just shut out any voice that doesn't agree with left of center point of view. And then that goes further, where you have people like Maxine Waters calling for these people to be shouted down in public places, at restaurants and stores, and others who demand the so-called Lincoln Project, made up of supposed Republicans, saying no one who ever served in the Trump administration should ever get hired for a job ever in their lives. I just don't see that as helping this country and bringing any sense of unity.
It's not. It actually further takes us in the wrong and dangerous direction that does not represent the democratic values that our country was founded on. So this censorship that we are seeing, including the censorship of Donald Trump online, is something that we see in dictatorship, in countries led by dictators, right? Where the dictator knows what's best, and we don't want other people hearing from individuals who we disagree with because they might actually influence them, or they might believe the things that we're saying. And we don't want that because those things are terrible and they're wrong in this dictator's opinion. And so they start shutting down their opponents. They start shutting down free speech because they only want their voice, their narrative, and their message to be heard. So this is no surprise that we've seen people like Angela Merkel and the president of Mexico and other world leaders step up and say, hold on a second. What these big tech companies are doing in America is incredibly dangerous. And they understand from history of where this ends up. Not only is this more divisive, it just further undermines the very principles that our founders laid out for us in this country.
Well, Tulsi, I truly appreciate you having the courage and always taking the time to talk with us. Thank you for joining us. And I want to say to our audience, you can follow Tulsi on social media at Tulsi Gabbard, and also check out tulsigabbard.com for more. For the latest on a whole lot of our show, we're going to turn to Keith Bilbrey. But before I do, I want to tell you, Tulsi has a brand new podcast. It's about to launch. So if you go to her website, you'll be able to sign up for it, and I hope you will. She's one of the true voices of reason, and we're delighted to have her on the program. So you might want to follow her.